Hello, my name is Stirling, and I'm here today to talk to you about a project that I've been doing with colleagues from postgraduate teaching in art and design at Sheffield Hallam University. This research explores whether and how speculative, future-oriented design briefs can make design students aware of their agency to be socially responsible, and how using the site of their city can support their agentic behaviour. As a teaching team, we are reconsidering our Western-centric pedagogy and diversifying our approach, drawing on the knowledge of our students and their heritage and cultures. We use the city to explore new ways of learning and designing together. The project is called Design Futuring the City, and we work with an international cohort of MA design students from a cross-disciplinary design programme. And we ask them to imagine futures for their home cities. These are developed from a wide range of futurologist predictions and draw on their own heritages. This could either be based on materials and craft, and practices and rituals. We ask them to think about their cultural heritage and the intangible cultural heritage. We want this to go at least some way towards decolonising our curriculum, so deeply embedded in design's preoccupation with Western ontologies, and enable the students to have an opportunity to share their specific cultural knowledge and backgrounds with us and each other. And this links with the theme of the conference, Rethinking Objects of Art and Design from the Past and the Future. This presentation is going to cover the background and context of this project, look at some examples of student project outcomes. We've been running this project for the last 4 years now, and our analysis reviews 3 years of the project outcomes using survey responses, interviews and focus groups with the students. Well, I'm going to conclude with some initial findings that may interest this audience of the conference. Further analysis work is ongoing and will be presented in the conference paper, which will follow. We're really drawing attention to our design value judgments and trying to problematise these, thinking about what visual value judgments we hold as designer and educators. We're influenced by mattering, and that theoretical lens of new materialism underpins our thinking. And we're also influenced by speculative feminism and post-colonial ways of thinking and being, which I'll detail more in subsequent slides. So this is a speculative brief that we give to the students, and speculative and critical design traditionally comes from the RCA, looking at the work of Dunn and Raby, and a simple explanation can be that the use of critical design objects may not have a functional or commercial use. Problematising this a little bit more, building on the work of Prado de Martin, she critiques that and makes us think more about beyond scientific and futuristic technologies. So design is not necessarily engaging with the social, cultural and ethical implications of the technologies. And she highlights that visual and conceptual narratives in speculative design primarily reflect the people who are designing them, predominantly white, Western, middle class, male and straight. And furthermore, the designers remain primarily silent around issues of oppression in relation to capitalist, heteronormative, sexist, racist, classist societies, and they rarely reveal a definite positionality or ethical stance through their work. We think it's really important to amplify, listen to and make space for this work, particularly the work of the Decolonising Design Network, which I'll detail in subsequent slides. So the context that we're living in is the Anthropocene. So if we're looking at the UN statistics that the human population will reach 85 billion by 2030, humans are overwhelming nature. We've got overwhelming acceleration of human agency in the world, and the relationship between designers and nature are becoming disastrous. And we argue that designers hold a great deal of power in society, and we're really interested in how many young designers feel like they have any of this power, or are they aware that their training has equipped them with agency beyond the artifactual context. We set the parameters of utopia and dystopia. We're interested in futurologist and academics' predictions about issues that will impact on how we live in the future. And we're interested in the challenge of who shapes the city. What does the city look like? Is it visually situated in the past, in the place? If we're using global predictions, then the city becomes generalised. Part of the students' exploration was to give consideration to whether their visions of the future were utopian or dystopian, and how they might communicate that. So questions that lead us, we're thinking about the analytical lens of agency and agentic practices. What might agency look like? So how can speculative design briefs make design students aware of their agency to be socially responsible? And does using this site of their city support that agentic behaviour? The MA Design programme is a multidisciplinary programme with makers from fashion, illustration, graphics, product, interior, jewellery, metalwork, interaction and packaging. We've been looking at 3 years of student projects, which is about just over 200 projects. So the studio brief asks the students to really think about speculative social innovation. They have 12 weeks to do this project, and they're taught cross-disciplinary. We're asking them to identify one issue and think about their home city 50 years into the future. This notion of interface is building on some work that we did in 2017, and it's taking the notion from Rose et al. From 2014 of the interface and exploring their further work, which is looking at this idea of field of negotiation. So how does the students' agentic development draw on cultural heritage? We think that design students will potentially find themselves in a privileged societal position in terms of pre-configuration and need to be able to consider their role and this role of the interface within the broader value system in which they're able to enact their agency. We've seen the city in this project as an interface to student cultural background and to student well-being, looking at the way that they perform their agency and the idea of creational agency. We use this approach to consider heritage, looking at futuristic projects. We ask students to dig deep into the social, cultural and physical heritage of a given site or city as a theoretical model of operation for envisaging a very different or perhaps evolved future, and by doing this aim to learn more about the students' presence. As I said previously, this notion of decolonising design from the Decolonising Design Network is really important and underpins our thinking. It's really important to listen and design together, and we're aiming to decenter and diversify our studio. The student projects I'm going to present next are creational agency. This idea of having the power to shape your life experiences draws on Bandara 2001. We're interested in what agency looks like and their approach to social innovation and change. And how do these students use these images in their creative practice and process? It's about their ownership. So the first project is Reimagining Macclesfield in 2070. And the idea behind this project is to keep the two classes in Macclesfield divided. You can see the heritage of Macclesfield both architecturally and politically in this dystopian project, where you need to pay to access the more desirable parts of the city. And these are seen as the older traditional style buildings and configurations. And the student reflects that it was really important to think about the history and the political trends. And this underpins how his future played out. And he also learnt more about his hometown than he realised. The second project is looking at Guangzhou, and it is drawing on memories of Guangzhou to create a memory box to support mental well-being. The student was really keen that to go beyond the current sustainable development goals and focus on the physiological aspects of human beings. The next project is a critical design artifact, and it's a dystopian future drawing on a map of Nicosia city in Crete. And the app from the Ministry of Information offers a censorship app under the guise of reducing the gap between the government and the people. It really is an example of surveillance at its finest, and this is a project that came out 3 years ago and is currently a little bit close to home. The final project is looking at the city as a national identity and tradition, and it's based in Taiwan in 2067. The Shashi traditional tiger hats are a starting point for this Jewellery and Metalwork students project, and she was thinking about what social responsibility looked like. This treatment headgear offers a cure of physiological ailments and prevents anxiety through detecting brain activity, and it offers a sense of security to improve mental well-being and draws on the traditional elements from the Shashi hats. We've been working with student participants post-module for the last 3 years, and we've run this studio we've been running this studio to get feedback on their experiences. Looking at their key concerns, it's this challenge of tricky design and wicked problems that coexist, but that this studio offers them other ways of seeing. Also drawing on Tim Ingold's notion of making to think, that these physical items that they realise allow them to think about these more theoretical, tricky design, ethical issues. And it's often the reflection that is key that comes out of these projects, as opposed to the finished artefact. Some examples here of the students' need or want to have the agency to change. And these are comments from the last couple of years. So the plan is that we will go back and meet with the students to understand the impact of these projects longitudinally on their professional design life. Some of our key findings is understanding that creational agency for social change has definitely been inspired by their city and their heritages learned through the project. The project has affected a shift in the students' perception of their role as designers, particularly in relation to the environment and nature, and offers them scope to imagine scenarios whereby otherwise marginalised voices are heard. And as a staff team, we've found the city is a site of materialised human agency in a way that we hadn't expected. And the city has been an interface for agentic development, for us to diversify the curriculum and to learn with the students. Just a last note really, to reflect on living with the current global pandemic. We will be running this project again in September, and it's really challenging me to understand how our privilege requires more work to be done to run this project ethically, having not really experienced kind of challenges to our life in a way that lots of other cultures do. It starts to really unpick the idea about what is utopian and what is a dystopian present or future. Thank you very much for your time. If you're interested in any of the topics or findings that we've picked up here, please do get in touch to continue the discussion. My email is e.sterling@shu.ac.uk. Many thanks.